GRINDSET, inside the mind of successful entrepreneurs with your host, Cynthia Daniels and William Sprague.
I wasn't ready to hire anyone, so I knew I couldn't do both. I couldn't manage custom projects. Right. Although I was using a manufacturer, I still had to do the legwork to get the design ready, to get the measurements, to get the, get everything together. And that takes a lot of time.
Welcome back to another episode of GRINDSET. I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels, Chief Event Strategist of Cynthia Daniels and Company.
And I'm your favorite banker, William Sprague.
And today we have Jalona Falkner, founder of Jalona Marie Bridal. Jalona describes herself as a creative and innovative problem solver who designs gorgeous wedding gowns. But there's a twist to it. She also created the China connection, and she actually takes other designers overseas. So we have a lot to learn today.
And look, tariffs aside, I've been reading a lot of financial publications, and all of them say the same thing. China is the future of business. And so if you're not doing business in China, sourcing from China, you're going to be behind. And Jalona is about to educate us on this episode.
So stay tuned as we listen to Jalona's journey.
You're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll be right back after the break.
GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The KUDZUKIAN Network presents Cities Now with Carol Coletta.
I'm Carol Coletta, host of Cities Now, a brand new show hosted here on the KUDZUKIAN Network. With Cities Now, we want to help listeners make smart decisions for their cities.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Little by little, the city is rebuilding itself with businesses such as urban farms and breweries.
We'll interview the sharpest people on the thorniest issues facing cities now.
Cities Now, part of the KUDZUKIAN Network.
We are super excited to have Jalona Falkner, founder of Jalona Marie Bridal, in the studio with us today. How are you doing?
I am great. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you.
So happy to be here.
Yes, welcome to GRINDSET. And you have such a unique business. We have so many questions, so we're just going to jump right in if you're okay with that.
I am perfectly fine with that.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background in custom clothing and bridal gowns. How did it even come about?
So I have a really interesting story, and Cynthia is part of my growth story.
Am I?
Shout out to Cynthia Daniels and Company.
New information.
History, and you may not even remember, but I'm going to share it in a moment.
Okay.
So I have always been a creative. Okay. Always had that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, people call us hustlers. But I've always been that person.
Yeah.
And in the early, or I'd say mid 2000s, I just kind of got bored. Mm-hmm. I was working, still single, not married or anything. And I was like, you know what, let's take a sewing class. So from that sewing class, I got good really fast.
Just took a class. Interesting.
Took a class.
Okay.
Major key alert. Just take a class.
I just took a class.
Okay.
And at
Educate
that time, YouTube University
Yes.
wasn't what it is today.
Right.
So I connected with a master seamstress. Shout out to Lady Di.
Okay.
Master seamstress here in Memphis, and she taught me everything she knew.
Okay.
And from that point, I started making my own custom work clothes. Okay. Pencil skirts, suits, and peplum dresses, sheath dresses. Mm-hmm. And I was just rocking those. They were great looking. Okay. And people, my colleagues, exactly. Colleagues started asking me, oh my God, where'd you get your clothes? So I started making clothes for them as well.
Okay. Walking billboard. I love
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it came to me like, oh, this could be a business, but let's sit down and try to figure out how I can, because I knew I didn't have time to sit at a sewing machine the entire day. Like Absolutely. It would take a long time to be able to serve clients and make the clothes. Okay. So I thought, who can make clothes and who can make them cheaper than what I would make them for? Okay. And who can make them where I would have a decent profit? Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine, we were talking, and she thought about a person who she knew. Okay. So I reached out to them. Their price point was too high. I knew I couldn't price my gown, my clothes at that point, too high, because I felt like I was just beginning.
Right.
I was still new at this. Yeah. And I couldn't, charge $300 for a suit, because I still felt really new. Okay. So anyway, being the researcher and the never-ending, get to the end of the internet person that I am, I found a manufacturer in Vietnam. Who could create custom clothing one piece at a time. Okay. Their aesthetic matched mine. The fabric samples were awesome. Mm-hmm. And so I started using them to create my clothes.
Yep.
That worked really well for a number of years. And then I thought, okay, what if something happened to them? What would my business look like if something happened? So, interesting story, really interesting story. So at the time, I was a supervisor, or a manager of a technology department.
Yep.
I was managing maybe 14 technicians. Wow. One of them lived in Vietnam before he immigrated to America.
Small world.
Yeah, right? And so he came to me. He was like, hey, Jalona, I'm going to Vietnam this summer. Need you to approve my vacation request. I said, okay.
Only if.
Only if.
There you go.
So
you saw where it was going.
I slid him this piece of paper, which had the address of my manufacturer on it. And I said, I need you to go and talk to these folks. Just tell them you represent me and that, this is the business that we're doing. But I also need you to find me some other people who could make these clothes, some other tailors. So he did that. Wow. And I'm not even going to say that I gave him a free week of vacation. But I may or may not have done that. And so he came back with 10 more tailors.
Use your resources.
Exactly.
Wow.
No matter where you find them.
Absolutely.
Right? So I started to test out, order samples from these vendors. So interestingly, I had a friend who did hair. Her name was Irish, and she was someone's beautician, right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So she introduced me to you. This was maybe my third year in business.
Wow.
But do you remember?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Look at these GRINDSET connections.
Cynthia was new to Memphis. I think you had probably just
very new, maybe year 2, maybe.
You came in what,
2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this business started in 2007. So I had only been in business a year at that time, still operating out of my living room.
Wow.
Do you remember coming to my
I do
house?
remember coming for a fitting. Wow. Yes.
So, but what I didn't know at the time was you don't practice on real customers.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You order samples, you work out the kinks, and you get your process down before you actually deliver live production type of items.
Sure.
Major key alert here on GRINDSET.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't practice on real customers.
Don't practice on real customers unless they're friends,
Sure.
unless you know them.
Sure.
And at that time, you were an actual customer that had been introduced to me.
I remember, yeah.
You remember? I think you ordered a white dress and you ordered another.
I was going to New York. Oh, it's coming back.
So I ordered her things using one of these new tailors in Hanoi, Vietnam. And the clothes, when they came back, were absolutely nothing like I had designed. The fabric was different. The zipper was different. It was in the wrong place. The hem was wrong. There was no lining. There was no boning. There was no structure to the dress. And when she tried it, well, first of all, when I got it, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want her to like.
Because it was a big birthday trip.
It was a big birthday
crazy.
trip. And so.
How the sausage gets made, huh?
Exactly. So she came over, had her fitting, and I already knew that it wasn't going to go well. So I tried to prep you. I tried to explain. But for me, excuses as an entrepreneur are empty.
Yeah.
It's almost like making empty promise, not delivering at all. When you have
another
an
major
excuse.
key.
Exactly.
Right.
People don't care about your process. They don't care about, I was just trying out this new. They don't care that you're new.
Yeah.
They're paying real money.
Yeah.
You would pay me real money.
I remember.
And so I wanted to deliver on that, but I just was so new. I just didn't know. You know what I mean? So I think I ended up refunding your money.
Yeah, you did.
We
You
hugged
did.
at the end, and you understood. And
no beef. It was just the business.
it was just the business.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge lesson for me.
Yeah.
So you remember, it's all coming back, right?
It was 2010, I believe, or 11.
It was really, somewhere around there.
That's crazy.
It's almost been 10 years.
Talk about a blast from the past. And that was just question number 1, guys. So we may need to do an extended version of this interview.
Exactly.
Jalona, you're such a good storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
And then bringing up a little GRINDSET blast from the past. It's excellent.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear the rest. And so we're going to talk more about Jalona Marie Bridal and China Connect when we get back after the break.
Okay.
You've been listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll be right back.
Inside 901.
Inside 901. I am your host, Lieutenant Anthony Buckner.
Here on Inside 901, we will unpack the vision of Shelby County Sheriff Floyd Bonner and the various divisions of the Shelby County Sheriff's Office.
We have a racial profiling policy at the Sheriff's Office. We adhere to it. We expect our officers to adhere to it.
Uniform patrols that provide police services to unincorporated Shelby County.
Inside 901.
Hey, this is Jalona Falkner, founder of Jalona Marie Bridal, and I invite you to join my friends Cynthia and Brack on their amazing show, GRINDSET. Catch the latest episodes by downloading the KUDZUKIAN app in the App Store or Google Play.
Welcome back to GRINDSET. We're here with Jalona Falkner of Jalona Marie Bridal and China Connect. And so when we left off, I mean, you're telling great stories, but you left off talking about making custom clothes.
Okay.
How did you transition from making custom clothes to bridal almost exclusively?
Great question, Rack. Okay. Yeah. So, I listened to my customer and
major key. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's major.
It is.
I listened to my business, which in essence is my customer. I listened. And at the time, most of my customers were young professional women, single professional women, and life started to happen, which meant they started to get married. And I was working with one of my customers. She was a local doctor. Got engaged.
Oh,
and she said, "Can you make my dress? Can you do wedding dresses?" And being the entrepreneur that I am,
Yes, I can.
The answer came out before the thought process happened, which was, absolutely. Then of course that night I stayed up all night researching. I called Lady Di and I'm like, Di, oh my God, I just committed to a wedding dress. Help me. So, and she did.
Yeah.
And I learned how to make wedding dresses. But that first major key, not to practice on your customers, certainly not a wedding dress. Don't practice on wedding dresses.
Yes.
I made maybe 3 or 4 dresses before I actually got to her project. We had time.
Okay.
So you had made it yourself.
I had not made a wedding dress at all.
So you're not sending this to China yet?
At this point, no.
Okay.
At this point, no. I was not. I was making them myself, going to get the material, ordering the material, doing the technical design, the sketch on the croquis, like the whole process.
Wow.
Getting the zipper and the pearl buttons and the loops, buying all of that and putting it together. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when we finished her project, she got married, and she was gorgeous. I felt accomplished.
Yeah.
I'd made a few dollars. I was like,
that's a plus.
And this is another probably major key you want to write down.
I'm writing.
So what really got me into the pivot was I wasn't ready for a team. I wasn't ready to hire anyone. So I knew I couldn't do both. I couldn't manage custom projects.
Right.
They come fast. They come quick. People need their dresses in 2 weeks.
Sure.
And although I was using a manufacturer, I still had to do the legwork to get the design
To get it
to
ready.
get the measurements, to get get everything together. And that takes a lot of time. But meeting with a bride, doing a consultation, going through the design process, that also takes a lot of time.
Yes.
But I thought, why not focus on the projects that have a higher profit yield, do less projects, fewer projects, and I'll come back to custom dresses. I had done it maybe for 5 or 6 years at that point, and although I loved it, I felt confident that I got it out of my system.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was time for the next thing, and so your business could grow.
Exactly, so my business could grow.
Yeah.
So I made the shift to doing bridal, exclusively bridal, and it has been really an amazing journey. But I do fewer projects.
Yes.
But I make more money, and I had to be ready for that.
It is the name of the game. And since you mentioned profits, let's talk profit margin and the pivot to China. So here on GRINDSET, we like to get into the details of it.
I know.
So talk about the pivot from your original manufacturer to transitioning to China and the difference in profit margin.
Okay. So the manufacturer in Vietnam was a family-owned company, wonderful people, but they had limits.
Yes.
And I knew how they constructed garments, and I knew So Vietnam is a wonderful place for textiles, and they're a wonderful place for casual wear. It's not the best place for formal wear because the engineering, the type of design techniques that they use aren't the best for dresses that need structure.
Yes.
And I learned that because when I got engaged, I asked them to make my wedding dress.
Oh, wow.
And they said no. And at the time, I didn't have another option.
Right.
This was in 2013. I didn't have another option. So I ended up at David's Bridal.
Oh, my goodness.
For my wedding dress. And so, but that also taught me that you need to have a plan B. You need to have a strategy where you have, I call it a +1 strategy, meaning you've got your primary supply chain, but you've got others in your supply chain ready to go if you need that. So anyway, luckily it was my wedding, and then I didn't have to explain to any bride if they were going to do a dress. So anyway, so I knew they couldn't. So I set out to find a manufacturer, but let's back up a few years though, because I had already started sourcing from China in 2008 or 9. The very first product that I imported was, I don't even know, this is embarrassing to say, but I imported makeup. It was a brand of makeup, very popular, that wasn't really the makeup. You know what I mean? Okay.
Got it.
So, but it worked so well because at a particular vending show, I mean, we probably did $4,000 in a day.
You're kidding.
Yes. But it was just a test. I was throwing mud at the wall at the time. Yeah. Trying to get ready to step into this sourcing thing. Alibaba was still in beta phase at the time. And they didn't even have that many manufacturers on there. I was probably one of the first few hundred people to sign up.
So I was going to compare you to Jack Ma with what you're doing with China Connect.
Okay. So that was a few years before I actually started sourcing for wedding dresses.
Yes.
So I was already familiar with the sourcing process, validating, vetting manufacturers, looking at their certifications, looking at their capabilities and capacities. So I already kind of had a head start.
Yeah, and you're building relationships.
Absolutely.
That's also very important.
That is, Cynthia, you hit on the head. When you're working with manufacturers, particularly in China, Japan, Far East countries, that's what it's about, is the relationship. That comes first, which is one of the reasons why the China Connect is in existence, because I want people to build those face-to-face relationships. You get better pricing, better negotiation, faster ship. I mean, everything just works out better when there's that relationship. So I tried out a few people. And those first few projects were complete disasters. The dream dress ended up being nightmares. But the good thing is that it wasn't live projects. There were samples. And I did prom dresses as well. I just wanted to see what their capabilities were.
Yes.
And so
that was on your dime, right?
It was on my dime. Absolutely. I ate every bit of that cost. It was market research. It was R&D. It was just the cost of trying to scale. And so I kissed a lot of frogs. And finally, I found my prince, actually several princes in terms of manufacturers. And what I looked for was speed, expertise, whether or not they could create these fabulous waterfall ruffles. Could they do detachable trains that looked really like, poofy, extravagant train? I wanted to make sure they could do all of that.
Yes.
So that's how I started, but I learned my lesson. I got samples first.
And lastly, what was the impact to your margins from Vietnam to China, or was there any?
Yeah, absolutely. So while working with the Vietnam doing the custom clothes, my margins were probably in the 35 to 40% range. And then doing weddings or dresses, switching to China, was 50 to 60. Sometimes 70, depending on if the design was already pre-made and all I had to do was customize the hem, or perhaps move the zipper to the side or add sleeves. If they didn't have to start from a fresh pattern, then that was just all butter.
So many lessons you've just shared with our listeners. And when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about what's next for you, a little bit more about China Connect, how I'm sure somebody's listening like, I need to be in part of that cohort. So when we come back after the break, more with Jalona Falkner.
Hey, I'm Williams Brack, co-host of GRINDSET. The insight you gain from us and our guests will motivate you to take the leap into entrepreneurship. Make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast provider.
GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN! GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
I cannot believe we're on our last segment because I have so many questions to ask you. And you've given our listeners a lot of great advice. I think, you shared with us, number one, how you started doing custom clothes. You've learned some lessons. You've learned how to grow your business, and now you're traveling around the world. I would love to know, what are some of the biggest sacrifices you've made to grow your business? I think a lot of people need to hear that part.
So, my business is 10 years old now, and just full moment of transparency, I am really just now hitting the levels that I should have hit 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I am not where I probably could be in terms of business, in terms of the revenue and the impact and overall platform where I could be, because I chose to keep a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And I chose to get married. I chose to have children. And with that, you end up being, your priorities are split, which also means your time is split.
Yeah.
And in terms of sacrifice, I have, like I said, sacrificed, I think, the growth of my business, but it was by choice.
Yeah.
But I also make tiny sacrifices, micro sacrifices every single day.
Okay.
Because when you think about your family, and I think about, like, even right now.
Yeah.
So I'm recording the podcast now, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to make dinner before I left.
Wow.
So my kids are probably going to have to eat out. Hubby's probably going to make a McDonald's run, which they will love. But for me as a mom, you want them to have a green and a carb and
you
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's micro sacrifices like that that you have to be okay with,
right?
You have to find balance with, and I have to give just a moment, huge shout out to my husband who makes sure that I am balanced.
Wonderful.
And that I'm okay with those micro sacrifices.
Right.
He checks in on me all the time. And he's like, I know you love your business. I know you love it. Don't shy away from it. I know you love it.
Yeah.
And I know even right now you're probably thinking about your for your podcast, and so he's teaching me to be okay with being an ambitious entrepreneur that refuses to be outworked, refuses to be, you know what I mean?
That's beautiful. You have a support system.
It's a support system that I couldn't do what I do without.
Yeah.
And it looks different for a lot of people. It may not be a husband for a lot of people. It may be a mom. It may be a sister. It may be extended family. And those folks are still, they're supporting me too. But the sacrifices are that you can have it all. I think we talked about this at the live, at the GRINDSET Live. You can have it all. But for me, I can't have it all at the same time. Like, I can't be present at Fashion Week with my daughter.
Right.
And on the phone talking to my publicist.
Right.
Like, what's the address to the podcast? Like, tell me that. Like, I have to carve out time and stay in that lane while I'm there.
Absolutely.
Which means that business can't move as fast as I want it to sometimes.
Yeah.
Or I can't spend as much time with my kids, or I can't spend a week in Cabo with my husband. Maybe we can only do 4 days, or maybe we can only do 3. So there's a balance, but there's also definitely sacrifice.
Yeah.
I love that. And I almost hear in your voice what you're saying. You have to be forgiving. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect every day.
No,
I think that's
it can't
important.
be.
Yeah.
Because if you're striving for that, that means you're striving to be inhuman.
Right.
And that means you're constantly feeling guilty. You're constantly blaming yourself. You're constantly feeling less than.
Right.
And that you're not living up to any of those platforms. You're not a good mom. You're not a good wife. You're not a good entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Things are about to, cave in. And you have to be forgiving of yourself. And most importantly, you've got to have a team that allows you to be imperfect.
Now, we're getting really honest here on GRINDSET.
Yeah.
And I hate to kind of switch the mood, but
You're switching the mood.
I'm telling you.
No, I'm joking. to close out, how does a Flint, Michigan native who's been adopted by Memphis develop these international ambitions? So talk to us about China Connect,
Okay.
1. And then 2, how do we find you? Phone number, website, social media, etc. So when the GRINDSET audience wants to find you, where do we go and how do we find out more about China Connect?
Okay. So how have I made these international connections? I believe that all entrepreneurs share the same genetic footprint. We are just ambitious.
Yes.
And we don't take a no as a no. We take a no as a not right now. And that just means to keep trying, to keep pushing. So as I was saying,
Major key.
Keep trying, keep pushing. Major key.
Absolutely. So as I was saying, 8 or 9 years ago, when I was looking for a Chinese manufacturer, I kissed a lot of frogs. I hit a couple of walls. Things just didn't seem like they were going to work out, but that didn't stop me. I knew this world is so large that there had to be a perfect fit.
Right.
So I just kept pushing, kept taking those lessons and applying them and getting better at sourcing and getting better at things. So how that plays into the China Connect. So I've been sourcing products and importing products from China for years now, and Vietnam. And it occurred to me last year that there were other businesses like mine who would benefit from having these direct connections.
Right.
And having the mindset, which you guys, I'm looking at the mindset of successful entrepreneurs,
GRINDSET slogan.
Yes. Part of that mindset and being successful is not being selfish with what you have learned, with the connections you've made.
Have to.
And I thought, if I open this thing up, I open my arms up as wide as I can, that just simply makes more room for me to receive.
It does.
And for more people to fit into this huge resource and pool that is China. So
it's a whole world.
It's a whole world. And people say all the time, well, why would you share your resources? Aren't you worried about competition? Are you worried about somebody stealing your contacts? And the thought crosses my mind, but I know what is for me is for me.
If you said it before I could get it out, Jalona.
You were about to say
that's real. Yeah.
And I can't be Cynthia Daniels.
No.
I can start an event company,
but
it's not going to have your sauce on it.
Exactly.
Yes.
And what you do is for you.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And your customer, I can call your customer and say, hey, I know you spoke with Cynthia, but I also have a proposal.
Yeah.
It's not going to come across the same way.
Completely
your
different.
Energy is going to connect with theirs differently.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, they are going to choose to do business with you because they're supposed to be your customer.
That's right. Oh.
You know what I mean?
I need some soft music happening right now.
So I truly believe that and subscribe to that, which is why I can take a group of 15 business leaders.
15 different people.
Yes. And now, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
That NDA is in place.
Hello. Hello, legal. Hello, legal.
That non-circumvent agreement is in place. That non-compete agreement is in place.
Okay.
Because I want to protect my entrepreneurs that are with me.
That's
I don't
smart.
want them to feel timid about sharing and talking to this manufacturer because other people are in the room. Yeah. So, we protect each other.
Major key.
Major key.
But that is why I started the China Connect. And yes, it is a money-making venture for me. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is a part of my overall profit plan. But more than that, it's part of my passion for helping other entrepreneurs and being a leader, really, truly being a leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what we do is we conduct these tours twice a year. We go to different parts of China depending on the needs of the group. And we customize an itinerary that takes them around. We have drivers. I mean, it's a real premium experience. I mean, I'm all about the experience.
It has to be.
And when someone puts their trust in you to take them halfway around the world.
The first time.
You have to come with it. Like, you can't cut corners. You can't be cheap.
Yeah.
You can't be all about the money. The money will come. I'm focused on the experience and making sure that you leave China with the exact things that you set out to get. Right. But then also, as part of that, everybody can't go. No, some people don't want to go to China. Yeah. So we also do sourcing. We help you select the right manufacturer, and we help you manage your project and get that project in your hand, those products in your hand.
So if you are going to China, do you need passports and visas and whatever else?
Yes, you do. You need a U.S. passport and you need a Chinese visa. Now, think about Chinese visas is you have to be invited by a Chinese company. An invitation letter has to accompany your Chinese visa, your application. And we handle that. We've got relationships they gladly write us the invitation letters, and we gladly visit those factories. So
Okay.
it's a give, and it's, we take care of all of that.
Perfect.
Yep, take care of all of that.
So if we can't go to China, how do we kind of live through that experience, and where do we find you on social media? Because your Instagram is pretty popping.
Well, thank you so much. That's a whole other show, Cynthia. And we would come back and talk about social media because, oh my God, it is a beast. And it's a full-time effort, but it pays off.
So where do we find you on social media?
I am at The China Connect on Instagram and on Facebook, The China Connect. And then for my bridal business, I am at Jalona Marie Bridal. That's Jalona Marie, Marie Bridal, on both Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, the corresponding websites are the same, .com.
So listen, Jalona, thank you so much. You're a fantastic storyteller.
Yes.
I learned a lot. And at some point, I need to be planning to go to China with you.
I'm telling you.
Maybe just for the experience.
Financial services, and that's your jam.
Yeah.
But I know it's a jewel in you, an idea in you that you need to scratch out. Let us dig it up.
I'm just waiting for him to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you for seeing the best in me.
Of course. I see it. Please believe I see it.
Listen, we got to have you back in the future. And so thank you again. You've been listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll be right back after the break.
Well, no, you had the Buffalo game, but understand New York and upstate New York, they are not moderates by any measure.
They may
Am
not,
I not right?
They may not be, but guess what? Even conservatives get sick, and I think everyone realized that if healthcare was going to be threatened, they were going to be in bad shape.
That is not how they looked at it.
These heroes that you're talking about just responded to their constituency. The system worked. I think that's what happened. Funking up your airwaves and jamming the good information in your ear. Once again, it's Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
On the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Welcome back to GRINDSET. Man, this was just very inspirational. When Jalona talked about China and how she started her business and how she's growing her business and how she's transforming, she dropped a lot of major keys on this episode. So let's go through them. One is self-educate. Jalona took a class on sewing, and now she has a bridal business and connecting other entrepreneurs to China. 2, be a walking billboard for your product, especially if you're in the fashion industry. And as you start to scale your business and grow, make sure to diversify your vendors/suppliers. Most importantly, don't practice on real customers in the clothing and couture space. 5, as an entrepreneur, excuses are empty. You're getting paid to deliver. People are spending real dollars with you, so make sure that your product is good. 6, listen to your customers. China Connect grew out of Jalona listening to her customers, and that created China Connect. No is not right now for an entrepreneur. It's not never. And then 8, business is international. Do not limit yourself. Protect yourself legally. And lastly, and most importantly, helping others does not take away from you and your business. Cynthia?
Absolutely. And that really ties into my Power Woman quote for the week. It says, success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives, from Michelle Obama. And as you ended with your major keys, it made me think about Jalona not only learning how to source overseas, she decided to take a group of entrepreneurs to do the same thing. And I think it takes a big person to do something like that. Yeah. So it's all about sharing.
I mean, it's an important lesson learned on GRINDSET today, and I hope we can all take that to heart. So thank you for joining us for another episode. You've been listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll see you next week.
GRINDSET. Executive producer, Epicenter. GRINDSET is directed, produced, and distributed by KUDZUKIAN.